Alright, so hi guys! Today we are gonna do things a little different because I decided after doing my little ramble recently, I actually kind of really like having my Patreon shout out in the beginning of the video than towards the end, so I think I'm gonna stick with that for a bit, at least for right now, because it also feels like when I'm done with a topic, I'm not just adding on extra context, so we're gonna do it here real quick before we get into the theme and topic of this video. As well as that, I also do my audio in my living room, and it is a very, very hot day in Southern California, so we have my air conditioning going and my fan because my workspace is my living room, and I'm not going to let my pets suffer for a YouTube video. I hope you guys understand. Now, thank you as always to my amazing Patreon patrons. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to make stuff like this possible. I have a physical sticker reward tier starting as low as $5 a month across the board. I also do international shipping for those. And then I have other rewards such as getting things early, a $1 just simple support tier, yada yada yada. It's in my Linktree link down below if you want to support that. But because of that, you guys make these things possible. Thank you so much. And if you like my content and you like being here, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe because the YouTube bot is very dumb. And if you don't show engagement of some kind, then people just don't get my videos. And I say that because at least once a video, I get people being like, oh, you're still making content. Yes, I do my best to make new videos every Wednesday the best I can. I'm also doing studio vlogs either Monday or Friday. But there's the ramble, there's the shill. Let's get into the meat of the video. So, when I was asking for questions, because I'm currently working on two very big videos right now that are taking a lot of my energy, I wanted some quickie, rambly topics because I had none. I got background footage, I've been streaming a lot on Twitch, so I got a lot of that stuff, but I didn't really have, like, small topics that I could just do some quick paper ASMR here, if you guys can hear my notey notebook. And thanks to you guys, I have some of them. So one really interesting one I got was how my art development process has, like, changed from how I used to do it to how I do it now, because it's actually drastically changed. And so I have some notes here that are now before anybody says anything, these are what I have done and what have helped me. So if, other people are like, oh, well, that advice doesn't seem to help me, to each his own. Everybody's life is different. Everybody discovers things differently. But these are my experiences and how I've come from where I was to now. So we're going to have some of my old artwork, probably something from around 2009, back when I was in high school, to something more recent. I will just have them on screen, now. But pretty much how my style drastically changed was when I was younger, when I was in high school, when I was in 2009, I really wanted an anime type style. I was obsessed with anime. I was a huge weeb. There's nothing wrong with anime styles or weeby styles, but it's what I wanted so bad. So many people I followed on DeviantArt and on the early days of art YouTube where, no one talked, it was just speed paints. It was all about those, like, thin lines and swaft shading and cream colors and all the Copics you can think of and that very, like, swaft painterly style. It's something I strive for. But myself, like a lot of people out there, whether you be high schoolers, middle schoolers, college people, or just people who want to draw for a hobby, I could never do the other eye. I was very much that person that I could never draw the other eye and make it look good. I could do one really, really good animu-like eye, and I'd be really proud of that. It just wouldn't work. And so, every very big, drastic jump in my current style today, in my development process, this might be terrible advice, but it's honest, and I promised I'd be honest here. I do not recommend this for most people, but it's what happened with me. I got angry and pretty much said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna let my hand do the talking for me. The very first time was I was in high school and I was working on a picture. I don't remember what it was at the time, 'cause that was, God, well over 10 years ago now. I was working on a picture and I just couldn't do the other eye. I couldn't do it. I tried so hard and I couldn't do it. And I was getting so angry and just crumpling it up. And instead of, focusing on probably my math or my English class, I drew a character like I did. I had the face done and everything done. And I just gave him really, really big eyes. And I was just like, what? And I looked at it. And I looked at it for a long time because for the first time in my life, at this point in my art career, it didn't look like crap, at least to me. I'm like, oh, this looks good. Oh my God, I'm happy about this. And so that's where things started to develop. And then the same thing happened with a multitude of other things in my style. I've always talked about how I started my, graphic design journey, my art stuff, by coloring other people's works. I looked up free coloring line arts on DeviantArt. I joined groups. I did this and that. I'd go into site. I'd color my friends' stuff. Artists that I followed had coloring contests. I loved to color in Psy. With that being said, though, every single time I did something new or out of the box or something different I was in a foul mood and I just wanted to experiment. Because I was in a foul mood and I'm like, it's all going to look like crap anyway, might as well do it. And then I realized, I kind of like this. Another example of today, as in the past year. Back in 2020, like late 2020, I was talking to my friend Gunmooney, and I was working on a sticker design, and pretty much what happened was Gunmooney offered, hey, why don't you do, like, line variation, like thickness and stuff? You don't do that a lot. I only ever did it if I ever had, like, perspective pieces, which, if you've been following me a long time, I really don't do those that often. So I didn't get to use them much. And so I was like, okay. And then I did it with the, I believe it was either D&D Addict was my first one, or I Need Healing. It was one of those two that was the first one. And I was like, oh no, I really like this. I really, really like this. And then I started doing more with it. And then I started experimenting more with it. And I was also doing a lot with my line work at the time, back in, like, late 2020. I've gone back to my good old-fashioned thick blackness, like I did back in the day, because there was a while where I was doing colored lines and then multiplied lines, and I do like that look for some pieces, but for a lot of my artwork, what can I say? I like that big, thickums black lines. Feel free to clip that out of context, go right ahead. And so, I went back to that, but the next thing that happened that's a really big step in my development was when I had to make the jump from my tablet to Procreate. This is not a shell for Apple. This is just what happened with me. So I talked about this back at the end of 2020, or not the end, the middle of 2020. My computer was dying. My laptop was dying, and I needed a new one really, really bad. So I got a new laptop thanks to the stimmy, because, we're not going to talk about this at the point of the video. But got a stimulus check, talked to my husband about it. It wouldn't really help us in any other way. It wouldn't even cover our rent. So we were talking about it, and it's like, well, you really, really, really need a new computer. Why don't we just get you a new computer? Now, back at the end of 2019, I did get an iPad as a Christmas gift. Because my husband's a teacher, he was able to get a really nice refurbished one for, like, dirt cheap for what an IpadPro is. And then my family pitched in for it to be a birthday gift / Christmas gift for me. So, that being said, though, when my iPad eventually does die, I am going to be shelling out the money to get a big jahongus one. But that's not the point of this. And when I started doing it, I didn't like it originally at first. I liked it for the portability aspect and the sketching aspect, but the fact that there was no stabilizer, I didn't like. And I thought that was a big reason why, and I realize now that I thought was right, it was why I didn't do a lot of traditional work like I used to. A lot of my traditional stuff in my sketchbooks and things like that, I did out of necessity. A lot of my really, really big, like, sketchbook videos, when I was doing them all the time and things like that, they came from the fact that I was working, like, retail jobs where I was going in between living situations, and I was not able to take my entire setup with me all the time because I had a very large tablet at the time. Yeah, I had a laptop, but a lot of people know when you have a laptop, if you got a big tablet and a whole setup, it might be a laptop. It is not a stationary. It is a stationary laptop. It is not that portable anymore. Obviously, people find ways. That's not what we're talking about here. But I had to practice with my iPad because my friends used it all the time. I saw artists do it all the time. And because I was practicing with it and I was doing more with it and I was learning more about line confidence, that's something a lot of people have talked about. And I might make a video on it in the future because people have asked me like to do like a line art tutorial or talk about it. So I might do a more in-depth video in the future. If you do want that, let me know down below. I'll raise it to my list of priorities right now because I got quite a few good chunky lists in here, so we won't be missing upload schedule days like I had been recently. But it made me have to get good because when I got my new laptop and I was very excited, turns out my Huion's got dead spots, and it's got quite a few dead spots to where the tablet is not unusable. In fact, I use it as a second monitor and it is still a beautiful tablet. The problem is, it's got dead spots in the middle of the screen. Now, my Huion is old, and this was given to me for review, so I need to acknowledge that. But I still recommend Huions to anybody who wants a nice, good tablet. They're not sponsoring me. They did sponsor me for that video back in like 2018 or whenever I did it, but they haven't sponsored me since, so that's not a shill. It's honest. And I was originally talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to shell out and get a bigger Huion. I have my new laptop, I've got all this stuff going on. Why not just take the plunge? Well, I'm actually glad I didn't do that, because I started getting better and better with my iPad. And I started noticing a confidence in my lines. Lining for me had always been the easiest part, like time, and it still is to this day. But I noticed that without the stabilizer with my iPad in Procreate, I was suddenly inking things a lot faster than I had when I was doing it inside with the stabilizer. And I don't think people realize, because I always sped up my content, how fast, or no, how strong my stabilizer was. Whenever I would ink anything, I would have it on a minimum of S7. If anybody knows how Sci works, that's it. I don't know what the Clip Studio Paint equivalent is. I never used Clip Studio Paint. I do technically own it. I've just never used it. But it was becoming such a big deal. And then with the dead spots on my tablet, it would mess up when I was trying to ink. And so because of that, I started getting frustrated, and I started getting irritated, because pictures that would normally take me like 30-40 minutes to finish were now taking longer because I had to either zoom in, move it, or use half the tablet size. When, even though my iPad is currently smaller, I have the 10.5 inch, I think. I know it's not like one of the big ones. I know it's like either 10 inches or 10.5. But I was just getting faster at it. And so I thought to myself once, I'm like, I wonder if I can replicate this in my sketchbook. I hadn't in a while, because I always had shaky lines. Or I would be so nervous that I would put so much pressure on my hands that my hands would cramp up a lot faster when I would do anything in my sketchbooks, which is actually a big reason why I didn't work in sketchbooks a lot like I used to. It's not that I didn't want to. I love traditional art. It's that the artwork wasn't relaxing for me, and especially something like a sketchbook, it kind of should be relaxing, you know? And I was able to do it. And I was so happy with myself. I don't care that I was 28. I was so happy that I'm like, oh my god, the inking in my sketchbooks looks like the inking when I ink on my iPad. And it was that I realized it's because I couldn't rely on the stabilizer anymore. I became so reliant on the stabilizer that I couldn't learn how to do confident lines. This is not me, though. Emphasis. This is not me saying that you need to just not use a stabilization. I'm saying use a less strong one. Practice with it. You know, and then that way, eventually, you will get confident lines. Because when people talk about lines, they always talk about practice confident lines. Just do confident lines. Just be confident where the lines are going to be. It's easier said than done. It's why a lot of people like Lavender Town and other art YouTubers out here have made content saying things where it's like, oh yeah, you know, just do it. Just believe. And if you make a mistake, you know what Bob Ross always says, there's happy accidents. Well, you know what? That's true when you're painting and you can paint over something. It's not the same when you're working with pen and ink and alcohol markers. Sorry, Bob. And I do like Bob Ross. But they never talked about exactly how to practice confident lines. And the only way to do it is to do warm-ups. And I'm going to tell you how. Look up shapes. Basic shapes. Do circles, do squares, do a lot of broken lines. I used to be so adamantly against broken lines. I do it so much in my traditional work now. I do broken lines in them because I do the weird weighted, like, sketchy, blocky texture afterwards. I fill in those lines after it's done. I have been so much more proud with my sketchbook work recently because of that stuff. And I think that's a good way to help other people as well. Also, try working smaller instead of bigger. No, I'm not saying smaller isn't hurting your wrist. I'm saying that I like I said, some good, bold thickums when it comes to line work. When I sketch in my sketchbook, I ink on like a 0.3. Maybe a 0.8 if I'm like doing a really big thing in it. And then I add weight to it with the smaller one. And because I'm doing the smaller one, it doesn't look as clean, but then I can fix it by having the broken lines and adding weight to it. It's stuff people have told me for years and I just never listened. And eventually I started getting confidence in my lines. I started getting things like this here and there. And I decided I didn't need to rely on it like I had used to. And so that's another really big thing in my develop process now, is like how I've come from how I used to be. Because before, I was so self-reliant on things. Also working in Procreate, I had to learn to work with less layers because I like having big chunky files because I like making prints. I sell merch at cons, I sell stuff on my store, and having a good resolution means you have good quality prints. So I had to learn to consolidate my layers. But back in the day, I used to have to, whenever I would line art a single bust, I would have anywhere between like 10 to 15 because everything would have a layer, and then I would merge it down. And then I would add stuff to it later. I realize now that's such a waste of layers, at least for someone who does an art style like mine, where it's a more cartoony, stylistic kind. If you're doing more of a painterly or a softer, it's going to be different, you know? But because I had to learn to put more into what I had to realize, okay, I had to learn color blocking properly. It's not the way I used to do it. I need to realize it now. I need to learn about line variation. I need to learn about this. I also need to learn that sometimes your lines don't have to be perfect. I was so obsessed with having like perfect, crisp lines that stuff would take me so much longer. I look at my stuff now and it seems much, at least to me, it's more fluid, it's more bouncy. I see more like character variation in it because the fact that now when I ink, I only maybe ink on maybe 3 layers, and that, like, one of those layers is just for the eyes because I still like doing my transparent thing. Other than that, everything else has still stayed the same. So, with doing proper practice like that, and doing style studies, hand guides, you know, coloring over backgrounds. Another good thing was color blocking. A good thing to practice is when I color block, when I would practice things or work on things, is I would take pictures and fan arts of things that I liked. I will open it in Procreate, and I will just start painting over it for the shapes. I'm not tracing over it for a picture. I want to study it. I want to study how they put the characters in that, because I'm currently trying to work on foreshortening and foreshadowing myself. And so, with the, well, not foreshadowing like a story. I mean, you know what I meant. Perspective. And so, in doing so, and doing these things, I've been able to break things down into easier shapes. Same with doing color studies. A lot of my earlier characters and a lot of my earlier works had the problem of a lot of colors melding into each other. This is, you know, where a lot of people talk about tone and value. But I also learned that you don't have to do it in black and white. You can do it in any color you want, but it needs to be the same color so you can understand value and tones. These are specific things you should be looking for that people are not telling you about. They didn't tell me. Everyone's like, just practice. Go look at life. Go stare at pictures. No. I'm telling you right now, trace over those pictures. Obviously, do not post it. Do not put it for profit. This is for studying purposes. Trace over those pictures. See where the anatomy goes. See where the perspective goes. Trace over screenshots. Go to video games you like. Color block it. Color block it so you can see. Think of it like one of those shadow boxes. Or like, you know, in more modern terms, like a multi-dimensional like anime standee, right? You've got the background, a prop, and then your character. Think of how that will go, and then when you see that and you break it down in your mind, your brain instantly goes, shapes. Let's go with shapes. Let's go with colors. Let's go with working things, which is why, into my next thing, I brainstorm for, like, bigger or more dynamic pieces. Most of my work, realistically, is character stuff. It's mostly characters. I mostly do busts and chibis and stuff like that. But I do want to do more with my art. I want to make scenes. I want to do things like that. And when I do, or when I have more than one character interacting, which, again, I'm still mostly a commission artist, so it's not as much as I would like, I do thumbnails. And by doing the thumbnails, what I've started doing is I will zoom into my canvases. You see it a lot when I stream and stuff, or on my TikToks when I, like, post up my videos there. I will, like, zoom in with my fingers on my iPad, and I will, like, make a tiny little thumbnail. It's darker than the background layer. And I will take a larger pencil, and I will start just getting a basic idea of what I want in there. And then I will make it a little bigger. Not much bigger, but I'll make it a little bigger, okay? And then when I make it a little bigger, I now trace over that basic thing, now that I have the basic shapes and the poses going on, and that's where I have my most basic sketch. Then when I have the most basic sketch cleaned out, this is when I will often do something where I'll, like, do in a value, and then if I need to do clothes or a lot of details, I'll do a different color in my sketch. Because I do most of my stuff in digital. So, once I've done all that, and it looks good, and myself can read it, that's another big thing. Don't worry about if other people can read it. If you can read your sketch, that's all that matters. Unless you're doing collaborations, then clean up that sketch. Be a friend. Don't be that guy if you're doing collaborations. I have been that guy, and I've also been the receiving end of that guy. So, I've learned. Then I zoom into the full size of the canvas that I want. And now, I know what it is, I know what it's want, and then I go into inking, and when the inking comes through, that's when I do my final details. That doesn't have to be how everybody works, but for me, it's been great, and it's been really, really helpful. Another thing is using the resources that came with my programs. I know, Michelle, you were just talking about how we shouldn't rely on our stabilizer. Yes, not relying, but there's a famous, saying in almost any industry, work smarter, not harder. If the application or the program has a use for it, use it. There is no point for you to be stippling if you're doing digital work and you have hand issues. Go find a brush for that. If you really want to make something look really good and symmetrical, whether it be a pattern reason or maybe a frame, use the symmetry tool. No one's going to care. There are going to be people that call it cheating, but as someone who took AP Art History, or not Art History, AP Art Studio in high school and got an A in it, I had a teacher that was one of those teachers that was like, no, you can't draw a mechanical pencil. You can only be a number 2 pencil. I understand the difference when it comes to, like, actual, like, shading pencils, when you have, like, a B or an HB or stuff like that. But a basic number 2, I'm sorry, you can do the same crap you can with a mechanical pencil. Which I did with my final. Didn't tell a teacher that until I did it. I did my final. I don't have the picture to this day. My parents have it, like, in a folder somewhere. But my teacher was so proud of me and was like, wow, you did so well. And see, didn't you really learn? You really accept that, like, how it works with the mechanical pencil and stuff like that, or the 2B pencil. And I looked at this man square in the face, and I said, no, I did this in mechanical pencil in my room. And they were just shocked. My teacher was just shocked at me that I was able to do the same tone and values with a mechanical pencil that I was with a basic pencil without the pencil shavings. Now that I'm older, I have weird varying things when I work in my sketchbook. I get in, like, weird moods. So right now I am currently in a coal erase pencil mood, so I do like those over my mechanical pencils, but I've used mechanical colored pencils. I have basic mechanical pencils when I do work in my sketchbooks, and I just want to do sketchy sketch stuff. But that's a good example. We have technology nowadays to make it easier. It's the same thing like when you see artists now, and there's a lot of discourse behind it, where you see, like, artists and, like, comic book artists where they use, like, 3D models and they trace over, like, a very basic pose of a 3D model. And by that I literally mean the silhouette. I really wish people would stop with the, tracing. No, if you're basing over the silhouette because you have to do a comic, because you have to get stuff done. Fun fact, people in the industry have been doing that for a long time, and they still do. I can't tell you how many things that I've seen on Twitter of artists openly admitting, yeah, I didn't want to deal with drawing hands. I know I can draw hands. I didn't want to deal with it, so I took a picture of my hand, I manipulated it, and then I traced over it, and wow, what do you know? It looks like it matches with the picture. It is so common for things like that to happen. Obviously, don't trace everything, but most people aren't going to care about a hand, a hat, a prop, a basic pose. It's very different than full-on anatomy and full-on tracing. But use the resources that are available to you. I, for the longest time, felt such guilt whenever I'd look up a pose, whenever I'd look up a reference, because I would see the people who were just like, you don't just do it in your head? No, because guess what? I forget the name of it right now, but I have a mild form of that, like, disease where, or not disease, it's that anaphasia or anaphasia. I can't say what it is. I will have it on screen. I think Michi, make sure you have this on screen. But it's that thing with the apple test where, you can't, like, perfectly visualize an apple. I'm not full on darkness like a lot of my friends are, but I am more in the, like, weird gray apple, kind of an apple thing. Like, I'm around that range, right? So there's a lot of people who want to be creative and artists, and they can't mentally visualize something as perfect as other people can. And that's also fine. We need to stop gatekeeping stupid things and gatekeeping technology that is there to help us. So, yeah, there we go. That's my art development process from how I used to work to now, and how I used to think. Because how I used to think was the whole thing. I did the little skeleton man, I did the bubbles, I did the thumbnails, I did the thing. I've done everything in the book, and it almost never helped me compared to what I do now. Some of it did. I did learn some fundamentals, and I did learn that you do need to learn the proper way when it comes to practice, or else you're not gonna get much better. And I learned that by breaking the rules and doing what I said in this video. I learned all of these things by doing tracing studies, by doing color stories on my own thing, learning with tones, learning programs, learning not to rely on programs, learning other programs, you know, looking up colors, looking up things I liked and seeing why those mesh together, learning tone theory. It's a whole bunch of shenanigans. But that's where I am. That's where I was. This is where I am. Hopefully this video helped you. It's really good to make art rambles again. I've really missed these. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I will. See you next time. Bye-bye.